Well, let's return to that story and try and finish up with it, shall we? We told you what Joe Gatti, chairman of the committee, has said. We told you what Mahama Ayariga has said as well. But questions have emerged about the composition of the number of witnesses that were built to appear before the investigative committee. Boache Jacko, whose ministerial approval was in contention, Mahama Ayariga, whose comments triggered the scandal, Joe Osei-Wusu, chairman of the vetting committee, who is alleged to have paid a bribe on behalf of Mr. Jacko, and Alhaji Muntaka Mubarak, who denied receiving and sharing of the said money, are the key witnesses announced by the investigative committee. Well, two others who many consider equally important to the investigations are Alhassan Suhini and Okudzeto Ablakwa, who were party in the petition to the Speaker for an investigation on the matter. Mr. Ablakwa is unhappy about his exclusion from the band of witnesses and has been writing. So on Facebook, this is what he wrote. He put this on Facebook. He says, and I'm quoting, he says, "May it be known that the so-called confession attributed to me by Honorable Joe Osei-Wusu is nothing but a desperate, malicious, and cancerous fabrication which would not be allowed to fester. The last time Honorable Osei-Wusu made the same allegation, he hanged it around the neck of Honorable Mahama Ayariga. I guess he had forgotten to be consistent when he appeared before the special committee today. Let no one doubt my resolve and the extent I am willing to go to vindicate the truth in this matter. Truth stands." That is Okudzeto Ablakwa's Facebook page. And that, well, right after that, moments after that, his lawyers wrote to the investigative committee requesting that he is invited as a witness on that committee. And I've got the letter here. I'm not going to go through it from top to bottom, but I can just pick a few of, well, one or two paragraphs. He says, "Our client further instructs that the artist has come to his attention that your committee has decided to limit the number of witnesses to be called to give evidence and that he has not been named as one of such witnesses. However, in his testimony, which was beamed live on national television and which has been widely reported in the national print media, the chairman of the Appointment Committee of Parliament and First Deputy Speaker, Honorable Joseph Osei-Wusu, mentioned our client as having told him that the bribery allegation was made up. Since our client was not given an opportunity to cross-examine Joseph Osei-Wusu on the unsubstantiated piece of evidence, it will surely be in accord with the rules of natural justice that our client be heard in his own defense before your committee." That is part of the letter written by Okudzeto Ablakwa's lawyers, Ayeni and Feli law officers, to Joe Gatti, which has been granted. So Okudzeto Ablakwa will be on that. But before we go on with anything else, here is what Joe Osei-Wusu said, which has triggered this letter from Okudzeto Ablakwa's lawyers.
Honorable Ayariga says that it was Honorable Muntaka who told him. And I said that if Muntaka told him that, Muntaka was also telling an untruth, and that neither I or I and Muntaka never discussed anything to do with money. Neither have I taken any money from Honorable Ejako for myself or for anybody. The Speaker, throughout the weekend, the discussions that were going on was terrible. Very presumptuous conclusions drawn by people in the media. So I came to a conclusion that this matter should not end here. I should bring it back to the floor of the House. So, Mr. Speaker, on Tuesday, I made a statement on the floor of the House. My main intention was to go to court. And the reason I wanted to go to court was that if this matter was not settled at a forum where alleging, go around, take all corners.
To all they can say is that it is true.
Oh, they are bringing in people from here, inviting, you know.
So you to bring people to say it's not true.
So how can I bring people when something has not happened?
Continue.
You know, so I considered, I had a meeting. My lawyer is my junior. I trained in Koforidua. Fortunately, I was in Koforidua. So we had long meetings. We came to a conclusion that they challenge any litigation with an MP with how to serve a process.
So, as you were leaving the Speaker's lobby, can you tell us why you went back and decided to approve them by consensus?
It was because the reason for the minority members objecting to or not supporting their nomination had been resolved to the satisfaction of the minority members.
Was that brought to the floor, to the chamber?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, after it had been resolved in the Speaker's lobby, we came to report on it, and then I amended the report in the chamber based on the consensus that had been reached at the Speaker's lobby.
Thank you. Honourable members, do you have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, just a few questions. And the first one is the conclave meeting. You mentioned at the conclave meeting, it was Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa who spoke. Did Honorable Ayariga speak on the issue that you raised?
Mr. Speaker, Honorable Ayariga did not. When I said that that matter should be resolved, as I said, he had raised his hand, but all the other members said, cool it down, take it easy, take it easy. In fact, as soon as we entered the room, the minority leader said, oh, Mr. Speaker, you seem too visibly shaking, please take it easy. But after I raised the issue that it be resolved as such, Ayariga did not speak. It was rather Okudzeto who spoke.
Honorable Ayariga, Honorable Okudzeto.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Honorable Ayariga, Honorable Okudzeto.
Or their constituencies.
All right, so that is how we wrap up the conversation on the vetting bribery scandal. But of course, it's a developing story. We've got lots and lots and lots of time to follow it and to make sure that the question is answered. And that question is whether or not money exchange house in favor of Mr. Ejako in the Parliament that's supposed to be making laws for all of us. Well, we'll be following up on that. We put some post on Facebook. We'll get to the comments before we wrap up the conversation. But for now, let's deal with a very important matter, sanitation. Sanitation has been a very huge problem here in this country. Now, improper disposal of waste has been cited as one of the causes of flooding in Ghana. Well, in June 2015 actually, Ghana suffered its worst disaster that led to the death of more than 150 people. These people died because the Odor drain overran its borders because more than half the drain was filled with waste. The Accra Metropolitan Assembly asked that the drains be dredged to allow for smooth passage of water. 2 years down the lane, we find out how far this exercise has gone and whether or not we are ready for the rains. In the morning, the host of AM show, Roland Walker, spoke to engineer Sena Adiepena of the Dredge Masters. They are the companies tasked to dredge those drains there. This is a short piece of what they got this morning. But in the studio with me is Sena, and I'll be engaging him right after this.
To have this challenge of squatters along the drain.
I mean along the whole of the channel?
Along the whole of the channel. You see a lot of illegal structures.
From where to where?
Right from Abosokain, Agbogulosi, where you have the locals burning e-waste, trying to take copper and other materials from imported electronic gadgets, creating a lot of fumes, affecting work. You know, visibility is poor there. And then moving upstream towards right from the Circle, Caprice, a lot of mechanic shops, a lot of makeshift residents where you have people living in. And their means of disposal of rubbish is to throw it directly into the drain with the thought that the water will wash it downstream and take it into the sea. But then that is not the case. As we have siltation ongoing, we added to the waste that is building up as a result of the human activity along the drain. You have the waste on the top, still building up, and then choking some of these critical passageways.
So this is what happened this morning. The AM team was there to find out how far work has gone. Sena Diepena is operations manager with the Dredge Masters. Once again, he joins me in the studio so we can scrutinize their work so far a bit more. You're welcome. Thank you very much for your time here on the Pulse.
Thank you too.
Okay. Now, you've been doing this for what, 2 years?
No, we started November 2015. That will make it about 14 months.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
that's
about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a little above a year.
A little above
a year.
Yeah.
And are we ready? Can we confidently say that Ghana is ready for the floods that killed the kind of flood that killed 150 people now?
Well, we are not ready, as I can say. Work is still ongoing on the drains. The major challenge as causing delays to the completion of the project in time would, one, be attributed to the fact that we have a lot of waste still being carried along with the water that is coming in downstream. The project actually is in 2 phases. The first phase is to desilt and dredge the Odo and Korle Lagoon.
Which is what you're doing now.
Which is exactly what we are doing now.
Okay.
And then we move on to, after that, then we move on to the beautification. And
what's that supposed to be?
Yes, to make it a recreational facility, along the banks, improve the scenery of the area, create a buffer area. We have parks, we have, just name it, pavements, walkways.
I see.
Just as you find in the European countries. We intend to even better it in the long run.
Okay.
Yes.
What was the timeline you were supposed to be working within?
Well, it is a 2-year project to dredge and beautify, and as it stands now, as I said earlier, dredging is still ongoing, but as we are dredging, designs and plans are being made for the bank protection, the beautification aspect. Okay. We are trying to work within time so that we are able to complete it.
Okay.
Yes.
And do we know the cost of this project?
For now, I can't say exactly the cost. I'm not in the position to give out that.
But you're a precious manager.
Yes.
You should know.
All I can tell you is that it's a wholly pre-financed project.
Okay.
Pre-financed
by the Dredge Masters.
By DML, supported by the Jospon Group.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're pre-financing this, and then later the government of Ghana is going to have to pay you.
Exactly.
And so you should know how much we're paying you.
Well, at the moment, I don't know.
Well, if you don't know, how do you work? How do you do a job that you don't know the amount you're going to be paid for?
I can probably give you that later, but as it stands now, our main focus is to ensure that we save lives and mitigate the effect of heavy rainfall during this upcoming rainy season.
Okay,
yes.
So from the look of things, you're not likely to go beyond the timeline that you've got, the 2-year period.
Yes, hopefully we are hoping to work within that time frame.
And if you do, what should the people of Ghana do to you?
Well, I cannot say, but then we are doing our very best to ensure that we finish on time. But
okay,
yes.
Thank you very much, Sena. Sena Adiepena is operations manager with Dredge Masters, and they are making sure that the Odo River is cleared of the filth so that we won't witness what happened on the 3rd of June. 150 people died. Thank you very much for passing through. Let's move on and talk about education. Now, Minister for Education, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, says the free senior high school policy to be introduced by government will ensure that students will be exiting school at an age when they are legally employable. The minister mentioned this in a response to queries that the large numbers of students who would graduate from senior high school can gain or may not be able to gain admission into tertiary institutions.
The cripple that was beside the road that Christ wanted to heal, the Pharisees and the Sadducees said it was a Sabbath day. Some people have been enjoying free secondary education, even including tertiary education in this country. Weren't there rich people amongst them? So now is that somebody else's turn to enjoy it. You are talking about what?
No, but my question is, you will agree with me that obviously a lot more people will expect to be enrolled because it's free. Have you made arrangements for the tertiary level when all of these have come out?
Our priority is the secondary education, where we believe that we should make secondary education a right. Where the UN has started talking about secondary education as a right. We want functionally literate, competent, efficient, effective people out of secondary education. Tertiary education, people will go at the time that they choose to go. The irony of the fact is that before now, JHS was an exit exam. The 14, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old who left JHS to do his own thing was not even legally going to be employable. But we sat in this country and allowed it to continue. We want the exit of our educational system to be at the level where the person can get gainful employment legally.
Well, the minister also indicated regulatory bodies in this sector will be sourced to function effectively. The regulatory bodies include the National Council for Tertiary Education and the Vocational Institute. Dr. Opoku Prempeh said this after touring the education village. But before we bring you what he said, Anna Odame was with him and she joins me in the studio. Hannah, what more can we know about this?
Well, the education village is a big compound that houses all the regulatory bodies of the education ministry, and they are supposed to regulate everything that is churned out in terms of the educational sector. Unfortunately, Dr. Opoku Prempeh realized that a lot of them do not really do their jobs effectively because they are under-resourced or another issue one way or the other. One of them, for instance, is the National Accreditation Board. We've heard of them several times come out with disclaimers after some tertiary institutions do not really come up to the perform their tasks effectively. Right. So he charged them and told them that they should ensure that he is now the minister. Make sure that you do your job well. I'm going to resource you. I'm going to ensure that you have all your resources, financially, humanly. Make sure that you perform your task effectively.
But I'll talking about performance. There was this speech in which he speaks about the head teachers not going to, the fact that the head teachers are not going to be allowed to stay on if they do not. The children or the students are not performing. Did he respond to those concerns?
He said he was going to sanction them, not sack them.
Really?
Yes, and we'll get that subsequently for you. He said he was going to sanction them, but not outrightly sack them, but charge them to ensure that your students do not fail.
Okay, so just so we introduce our previous, yes. What triggered that response? What triggered that response about regulating?
Well, today he met all the regulators. Okay. He's familiarizing himself with the ministry, and so he met all the regulators. And Gifty, I was amazed of some of the names that I heard. All of these are in the educational sector. Some of them are supposed to be taking care of the buildings, the facilities that the children are housed in, and yet we heard of the students that died as a result of these bad buildings. And so I realized that we have a lot of these regulators.
Perhaps they're not working.
Yes, so he charged them, do your work well.
Do your work well. Let's hear the minister now.
Fairness matters. That is why we need regulators. That they would apply standard tests and principles to everybody. From the Educational Act 2008, we created 3 regulators. We created the National Inspectorate Board, we created the National Teaching Council, and we created the NACA. All 3 were to do certain duties. And all the duties they were to do was to promote quality education in the country. And all the powers and functions we've given them was to take away interference from politicians. So for 10 years, nearly 10 years, those institutions have not been effective. So it is the duty of the current administration to resource those institutions to do the work they are supposed to do. So we will want land next door or somewhere so that we can put NIB, National Inspectorate Board, National Teaching Council, and the National Council for Curriculum Assessment on there. In so doing, Ghana Education Service should not continue to do those things. They should concentrate on performance and growth and quality education in the school. The school inspectorate, we want to challenge to be a schools regulator, so that even the buildings that we put our children in, we know that they are safe and secure of environment for our children to be taught in, whether government or private. To make sure that performance and growth of our students are happening in our schools. Those are the things we want to do as the ministry to promote quality educational outcomes. So those of you with regulatory powers already set up, we want you to up the game. Those that are weak, we have to resource for them to also up the game. A nation of illiterates cannot sustain a democracy. A nation of ignorance cannot promote democracy. And after all, the democracy we have chosen to embark on, that has brought us the biggest economic advancement in this country since 1957, from 1992 to now.
The Education Minister there speaking about regulating the kind of regulation that we expect in our education sector. Hannah, what was the response from the regulators that he met?
Well, they were fired up, of course, and promised to work with him to ensure that they do their jobs effectively. One of them was the CEO of the National Council for Tertiary Education, Professor Al-Hassan Mohammed.
Okay, well, we can hear him on the back of this now.
All of us have to up our game. We need to be vigilant and make sure that whatever regulatory mechanisms are in place are working quite effectively. But there are always those people who would want to take advantage of the system. You don't get to know them until the problem manifests. And when it manifests, we try to deal with it expeditiously.
But you will agree with me that some of your regulatory bodies have come under fire for not really doing their job.
Oh, yes, indeed. Obviously, when there's a problem, it always comes up. A National Accreditation Board, as I know, as soon as any issue like that comes up, they deal with it quite expeditiously. There are issues. There are a vast number of institutions out there, and on a daily basis, people are establishing institutions. In fact, the Constitution allows anybody who so wishes to establish an institution to do that. But there are laid down procedures that they need to follow to get that done. And sometimes they do not go through that.
Welcome back. Well, let's keep with some other stories now. And many Ghanaians fear snakes and do not hesitate to kill them when they see them in their compounds. That is really not surprising that Kofi Avaji attempted to kill one that he spotted in his compound last week. He missed the snake, but accidentally he struck a child. And the tragic result of this mistake is still haunting his family. The incident occurred at Bechele near Michelle Camp, from where Favor Nunu report. Just so you know, Favor Nunu is in the studio and will be engaging this matter, and we see how much of a development has come after the story.
On Tuesday, the 7th of February, an incident happened in this very place that I am standing at. I'm located at Bechele. It's a small township behind Michelle Camp. There was a young man that lived in this place, and I refer to him as was a young man that lived here because Kofi Awaze is no more. Kofi Awaze died because he stepped out of this room one afternoon in an attempt to kill a snake that was loitering around this compound. There were kids that were playing around, and he had cautioned that these kids stay away so he is able to kill the snake, or the snakes do not move on to them and hurt them. Unfortunately, one of the kids did not heed to his advice and caution. What happens is that he picks a log and attempts to strike the snake that emerged from underneath one of these wooden structures and materials that are loitered around on the compound. He accidentally knocks the little boy in the head. What happens afterwards is that the young boy's family, the father directs thugs to come in and arrest Kofi. His 7-year-old son narrates the tragic events leading to his father's death.
My father was fetching some water. We are fetching water and my father was killing some snake, and the stick wanted to hit some boy.
Who was that?
Some boy is small.
Okay. So when the stick hit him, what happened afterwards?
After that, the boy had make big, and they said my father to go and see the boy. And when my father go, and they use stick and hit my father.
So you were with your father and you saw them using stick to hit him?
Yes.
Who are these people? Do you know who?
I know.
Who are they?
I don't know the name, but I know him.
But you saw them hitting your father?
Yes.
What happened after they hit your father?
And my father was run, and they cut my father, and they sent to and when they shoot me finish, and they sent to the police station. That time I was crying, and my father said I should not cry.
That's, I don't have the words to describe that actually, but the PRO for Tema Regional Police, Julian Albane, has been explaining that the case has been moved from the Bechley Police Station to the Regional Command and that a full investigation will take place in due course. She shared that information with my colleague Beatrice Edu earlier on News Desk. But the person who's been following the story, Favor Nunu, has joined me in the studio. He will help us whether or not with information as to whether or not there's been any development after ASP's comment over what they're doing. Favor, it's good to see you. How are you doing?
As always.
Well, you do know that around this time we've got to do it really quick. Tell us the development on this story.
So the latest is that the family of the deceased have actually agreed with the lawyer for post-mortem to happen next week. It was supposed to happen today, but the family says they needed a lawyer present because they did not trust the posture of the police, and that's why they insist on the lawyer. So the lawyer has agreed that next week they would fix a date and the post-mortem would be done and the regional command can carry on with their investigations. So that's the very latest.
That's the very latest. That there is supposed to be a post-mortem, but the family is insisting that their lawyer
is present.
And that lawyer will be Xavier Susu,
exactly,
who is the lawyer for the deceased family.
Exactly.
How are they keeping up? You've been with them.
It's really difficult for the family, especially when they felt that he had actually reached his prime. He had done a lot of investment and was planning on moving the family away only next week to Kumasi to resettle there, and he died last week. So the family hasn't yet come to terms with it. But they're hoping that justice would at least give them some comfort at the end of all this.
I see. Must be very painful for the children as well.
It is.
Thank you very much, Favor. Favor Nunu has been following that tragic story. We'll keep at it and we'll bring you any more development that we know.